What's up, guys? Neil Orfield here, and I'm going to show you how I will be setting up my fantasy cruncher for tonight's showdown slate between the Buccaneers and the Saints. I'll be setting up for the largest field GPP on DraftKings. While you're coming in, please hit the like button for this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'm going to start by going into using this screen. I'm going to sort by projection. Actually, first I'm going to change my columns, go to my quick view, which I have saved, showing ownership projections, my projections, etc. in the middle of the screen. Now I'm going to sort by my projection, and I'm just going to get rid of everybody who has a projection for 0. All right, so I'm finding all these players with projections for 0, and now I'm scrolling down, clicking and scrolling until I get rid of all these guys. Okay, looks good. I also removed a couple players from up here that are showing 0. I'm not actually sure what Marquez Callaway's status is for tonight's game, but currently we have a projection for 0, so I'm removing him from the player pool. All right, now I'm going to go into the captain tab here, and I'm going to set an exposure cap for all players just in the captain spot of 20%. That means I can't get more than 20% of any player. Of course, if you want to get more of one player, you just go in individually into their box and change the number here. But for now, I'm just going to leave this at 20% per player in the captain spot. I'm going to go into advanced options now. And here I'll be working in 2 tabs, just the general tab and the groups tab, the only tabs I use here. Starting in the general tab, I'm going to be setting up for a 150 set here. So in a 150 set, unique players per lineup, I'm going to leave at 1 player. So I can have lineups that are just 1 player apart from each other. If I were making 40 or fewer lineups, probably I would change this to 2 unique players per lineup just for the sake of diversifying my lineup set. Team salary, I'm not going to set a minimum. I will set a max on my salary cap just for the purpose of avoiding the most duplicated lineups. Usually the lineups that are going to be duplicated 100 times, 200 times are going to be ones that use the full $50,000 salary cap. You can still find good lineups that use the entire salary cap that are not extremely duplicated, but the easiest way to just get rid of most of the highly duplicated lineups is to set a salary cap here. I'd leave at least $600 on the table. I'm going to leave $1,000 for the sake of this video. So I'm going to use a $49,000 salary cap instead of the $50,000 that is allowed by DraftKings, again, just for the purpose of avoiding the most duplicated lineups, because if I'm lucky enough to win, I want to win a lot of money. Offensive players versus defense, the default is set to a max of 2 players. I'm going to change that to 5 players. That means I can have 5 players from one team against just the defense of the opposing team. Not something that's going to win all that often. Also not something that's going to be in my lineup sets all that often, but I want to allow for it if it projects well enough to make it into my lineup set. I want to allow for that type of lineup because the field doesn't get there, gets there even less than the probability of winning. So I want to allow some of those lineups into my lineup set. Randomness, I'm going to change to 30%. I've been using a lower number recently just for the sake of having more control over my lineups. The lower you set this number to, the more control you're going to have over your lineups. I think 30% on normal distribution randomness is a pretty good number. I think you can use 30% for classic randomness too. But again, if you want more control over your lineups, just set this number a little bit lower. And you can see here, I left the global exposure cap at 100%. I did set the cap in the captain spot, but I'm not going to set a cap on all players globally. And then minimum projection included in calculation. The default is set to 3. If I want a player in my player pool and they project for fewer than 3 fantasy points, I'll just go in and manually give them a boost to get them over this 3 number. I'm just going to leave this at 3 for now. And then finally, players from each team max, default set to 5. I'm going to leave that at 5 so I can have 5 players from one team against just 1 from the opposing team. Guys, we have a great offer for new users only. You can get full access to everything Stokastic has to offer for NFL for 3 days free. Projections, ownership, 1v1 tools, lineup generator, top stacks tool, 0 risk because it's all free, so sign up now. The link is in the description of this video. Note that Fantasy Cruncher is an add-on and is not included in this offer. All right, I'm going to go into groups, and we're definitely going to need to set some groups here. These are not great rushing quarterbacks with Tom Brady and Andy Dalton. I'll start with a Tom Brady captain group. So I'm going to find Tom Brady in the captain spot here. I'm going to make him my key player. And then I'm going to, in a secondary group, add all of his pass catching options. Looks like we've got a projection for Russell Gage. Good to see him back. And I'm going to include the running backs in these groups. All the running backs in this game are at least relatively somewhat involved in the passing game. All right, so Tom Brady, not much rushing upside. I think if you are playing 40 or fewer lineups, I would just go in here and say, if any key player used, so that's Tom Brady in the captain spot, use at least 2 players from this group. I think it's pretty unlikely that Tom Brady does a ton of damage on the ground. I think most of his fantasy points are going to be scored through the air, which means he's going to be throwing to some of these pass catching options. And on every passing play, they are going to be outscoring him because, we get full point per reception on DraftKings, plus the receiver outscores the quarterback per yard and per touchdown. So, the receivers are going to be outscoring Tom Brady on every passing play, and that's kind of the only way he's going to be scoring fantasy points. So generally, I'm going to want at least 2 players of these receiving options in a lineup if I have Tom Brady in the captain spot, because we can't have we need Tom Brady to be the highest scoring player, or at least close to the highest scoring player. It all kind of depends on salary as well, but he's one of the priciest players on the slate, so he's most likely going to need to be the highest scoring player to be the optimal captain. And because he gets outscored by the receiver on each passing play, generally it's going to mean that he needs to be spreading the ball around a little bit to be the most the highest scoring player on his team, which means that you probably want at least 2 players along for the ride in the flex spot. So I think if you're playing 40 or fewer lineups, I would just change this to 2 players from this group in a 150 set, which is what I'm setting up for. I'm just going to click, I'm going to leave this at 1 player, but then I'm also going to give boost to Tampa pass catchers in lineups that have Brady in the captain spot. A slightly smaller boost to the running backs. Sometimes I'll give smaller boosts to receivers who already project really well point per dollar, and I have concerns that I'm going to get them in like 100% of lineups with Brady a captain if I boost them. I'm not sure if that's going to be a concern here. I'll run a set of lineups and see if it becomes a concern. For now, I think this is a good starting place. All right, I'm going to make a second group, which is going to be Andy Dalton in the captain spot lineups. Here he is, Andy Dalton in the captain spot, making my key player. And then same thing, I'm going to be adding all of these Saints pass catchers to a secondary group. Once again, including the running backs. And then same analysis applies to Andy Dalton. Not much rushing upside. Most likely, if he's the optimal captain, there's going to be multiple Saints receivers in the flex, but I'm not going to force it. I'm going to say use at least 1 and then give boost to these Saints. So in a 150 set, if I have a handful of lineups that don't have multiple Saints pass catchers in the flex, I'm okay with that. I'm going to allow for that. We just saw last week was a great example of what can happen with Mac Jones throwing to like backup defensive back. I don't even know who the guy was who scored the touchdown for the Patriots, and he played at least one more snap after that. So there are ways for the quarterback to score by throwing to a player who is not in the DraftKings player pool, that's a way that they could score fantasy points through the air without being outscored by, somebody else who's in the player pool. That is something that can happen. And of course, we have trick plays occasionally where we have the quarterback receiving touchdowns. We've seen, attempts with Tom Brady as the receiver doesn't usually work out all that well. Here, would it be the craziest thing in the world if Andy Dalton is, I'm not seeing Taysom Hill. Is he even in this? Maybe Taysom's out and I missed word on that. But if Taysom is in, it wouldn't be the craziest thing to see the Saints, line up Taysom with Andy Dalton and have Taysom throw the touchdown. I don't know. There are weird things happen in the NFL. So it can happen where the quarterback is paired with just one eligible pass catcher on DraftKings. But typically, if you're playing 40 free roll lineups, I'd probably just change this to 2. But in a 150 set, I'm going to allow just 1 and then give projection boosts. Ultimately, we're trying to build for the likeliest scenarios. All right, now I'm going to make a Brady flex group. Going to find Tom Brady in the util spot here, make him my key player. And then same thing, I'm going to be adding all of these Buccaneers pass catchers to the secondary group. And now because I have Brady in the flex spot, I can also add those pass catchers in the captain spot. Rashad White was targeted 9 times in the last game for the Buccaneers. So definitely a viable pass catcher. And we've seen Leonard Fournette have games with multiple receiving touchdowns. I don't know if we've seen it this year, but I think last year on Thanksgiving, I believe. All right, so for this group, just going to leave this as is. I'm going to require, if I have Tom Brady in the flex spot, at least 1 pass catcher somewhere in the lineup from the Bucs. And then I'm going to do the same thing with Andy Dalton. Taysom's list is a quarterback. That's what I missed. All right, that's good to know. So I'm going to include Taysom in this group as well. All right, so Jarvis Landry. And I know that I mispronounced Taysom Hill. Somebody called me out for saying the word wrong, saying the name wrong. I don't know how you pronounce Taysom. That's how I say it. Maybe I'll learn one of these days. Okay, and here I have to remember, okay, I'm going to include Taysom in this group because he does occasionally catch passes from Andy Dalton. It's pretty rare. Okay, looks good. And same thing, I'm going to leave this group just as is. Now, if I have Andy Dalton in the flex, I'm going to have at least 1 pass catcher in the lineup from the Saints. And then I'm going to go back and add Taysom Hill to this secondary group as well. Okay. I think that's all I'm going to do as far as groups for now. I'm going to go and crunch 150 using my projections and see how they look. All right, first lineup I see has Tom Brady with just 1 pass catcher. Don't love to see that. Again, I'm allowing for it in a 150 set, but I don't want to see a ton of it. Don't love that I see it right away here. Second lineup looks better. I've got Andy Dalton paired with 3 pass catch options plus Brady in the flex with Mike Evans. I like this lineup a lot better than this one. Third lineup, we got Brady with multiple pass catching options in the flex. Looks good. Brady and Evans. Brady with multiple. Dalton with Olave. Brady with Evans. Looks good. All right, so maybe that first one was a fluke. Here again, we have Dalton with multiple pass catchers in the captain spot. This one looks good. All right, good. So maybe it was a fluke. Okay, here's another one. Andy Dalton in the captain spot with just one pass catcher. Again, if I see it a handful of times, I'm okay with it. But I'm just going to check those lineups specifically. So I'm going to find Brady in the captain spot. Look at those lineups. Okay, so there's one with just one pass catcher. Here we've got just Godwin and Rashad White, but I'm going to count that as two. Again, I'm including the running backs as potential pass catchers, so I don't mind that. So here's the second one, Brady and just Godwin. Here's a third. Getting to the point where I'm going to consider giving boosts. Fourth. All right. I'm starting to think about, is this too many lineups with Brady and just one pass catcher? There's another one. 5, 6. Yeah, I'm starting to get a little bit uncomfortable with this lineup set. 6 total out of 150. Not the end of the world. I'm not going to do anything to change the correlations right now. I'm going to see after I change up my player exposures a little bit. That might affect things enough that I don't need to change anything in the correlations. And then same thing with Andy Dalton in the captain spot. Take a look at those lineups. All right, I see Andy Dalton with multiple, just one. Multiple, just ones. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, we're running into it a lot again. Probably too many. Here's another one here. Yeah, too many for my liking where I'm getting the quarterback with just one receiver. I might consider just going back into my advanced options, go into the groups, and then actually changing this number down here to 2. Something that I would think about doing at this point. Guys, we have a great offer for new users only. You can get full access to everything Stokastic has to offer for NFL for 3 days free. Projections, ownership, 1v1 tools, lineup generator, top stacks tool, 0 risk because it's all free, so sign up now. The link is in the description of this video. Note that Fantasy Cruncher is an add-on and is not included in this offer. But first I'm going to look at my player exposures. So I'm going to start in the quarterback spot. Okay, I'm not getting to any Andy Dalton at all in the flex. That is pretty interesting. Probably not something I want. So I'm getting to a lot of Andy Dalton. Oh, I see why. Never mind. Because I've got this filter on. All right, so I'm going to remove that filter. That explains it. Okay. So I am getting to 28% Andy Dalton in the flex spot, 70% Tom Brady. Getting to 20% of each of them in the captain spot. So I'm getting to 90% Tom Brady in my lineups. That's probably more than I want. I'm not going to change anything with Brady just yet, but maybe I'd give a little bit of a boost to Andy Dalton. And I should say right now, I'm not actually making the decisions that I'm going to be using for tonight. I'm just trying to show you my general process and my thought process. I'm going to be doing more research throughout the day before I determine exactly how much I want of different players. And I also am getting to 0 of Taysom Hill. You know, he's a guy that can always put up a big score in a hurry. Maybe I'd give him a little bit of a boost, get him into the player pool. %30 Kamara seems fine. 36% Rashad White. 13% Leonard Fournette, who we're expecting back tonight. I'm going to sort by salary here. So, yeah, we've got Fournette. Costs more, lower projection. Recipe for getting a little bit less there. Mark Ingram, probably not that interesting unless Kamara gets hurt. But at 4,400, 3.8% projected ownership, I might have a little bit of interest there. Give him a little bit of a boost. We just saw this work out. This back up, and he should get some uh, run even if Kamara is healthy. We'll see some Mark Ingram, but most likely this $4,400 price tag is going to be hard to pay off unless Kamara gets hurt. But we just saw it happen this week with Najee Harris going down. Benny Snell had a big game. Certainly feasible. 57% Godwin, 43% Evans, 45% Olave. Not getting to any Julio Jones. Julio Jones. Had to think about that. All right. Maybe I want to get him in the player pool. It is too early in the morning. All right. Jarvis Landry, not getting to much at all. He's going to be under 20% owned, 5,200. Maybe I'd want a little bit of Jarvis Landry. Russell Gage coming in at 15% projected ownership. I'd have some interest there. Traquan Smith, man, at 2.2% projected ownership. Olave, Landry. So Rashid Shaheed has taken over. Interesting, as a wide receiver 3. Still, I'm going to want to have some Traquan Smith at virtually zero ownership, I think. So I'll give him a little bit of a projection boost. Scotty Miller, pretty far down the depth chart at this point for the Bucs. Marquez Callaway, I'm curious what's going on there. Oh, he was inactive last week. Okay, interesting. We'll have to see if Callaway is active. If he is, that'll kind of muck things up a little bit. But for now, we're leaving him at a zero projection. Not sure what I'm doing with Kevin White yet. I'll get him in the player pool, though. Maybe Rashad Perriman, too. Okay, and then tight ends. Juwan Johnson currently not getting to any. Not a great projection for his price tag. Oh, he's out. Okay. That's good to know. So Adam Troutman, probably the primary tight end here. That's going to change things up quite a bit. All right, so getting to a lot of these kickers. 54% suck up, 24% Lutz. I'm just going to leave them, I think, where they are in projections right now. Since I've made changes elsewhere, I'll get less of them naturally. Getting to virtually zero, Saints defense, maybe give them a little boost. And then I'll run it again. New crunch. All right, so maybe I'll do one more crunch now just to show you one more round of my general thought process as I'm going. All right, so now I see this, and I'm getting to a lot more Andy Dalton. Looks good. I think I'd like to get more Andy Dalton. Now Taysom Hill, does he become any more interesting with Juwan Johnson out? Maybe they use him as a tight end. They don't really use Taysom as a tight end anyway, but still I think I want more than that 0.7%. So I'll give him a little bit of a projection boost. Now getting very little Leonard Fournette. Maybe I want a little bit more than 7%. Does feel like Rachaad White has taken over, but game to game, I don't think we can really predict these things necessarily. Mark Ingram. Maybe want to give him a little bit of a bigger boost, get him a few shares there. Still not getting into any Julio. Any Traquan. who, especially with Callaway out, I would think Traycom will be interested in a 2% ownership. Probably because of the other changes I'm making, I'm going to need to give these guys a little bit of a bigger boost just to keep up, because all projections are relative. Yeah, I'm guessing Troutman is going to project well. I'll have to wait and see what the actual projection comes in at. But with Juwan Johnson out, Troutman being the clear tight end when he's going to be, my guess is he's going to project fairly well, and probably this ownership will come up too. But he's somebody I'm going to want in my player pool. Especially if the ownership doesn't come up much. And maybe I want more of these defenses. All right, there we go. Yeah, still not getting more Saints. Maybe I'd give them a boost. Good amount of these kickers. All right, so changed around the projections a little bit, changed the player pool. Still not getting to any Julio. Maybe I'd give him a bump. Still not getting too much Traquan. Give him a bump. Anyway, not going to go through this a million times right now. Just trying to show you my general process, which is look at the lineups, make sure they correlate well. Look at the player exposures, make sure you're getting to approximately how much you want of different players. And that's basically all there is to it. I'm going to look at these lineups one last time. Brady and the captain, multiple receivers. Dalton with multiple. Both these lineups look great to me. Brady with Godwin looks good. Dalton with Olave and Troutman. And again, Brady in the flex spot, I'm more okay. Brady in the flex spot with just one pass catching option, I'm totally fine with. It's only when I have the quarterback in the captain spot that I really prefer to have multiple pass catchers. So in general, I'd say that these lineups are correlating well enough, getting closer to the exposures that I'd like for each player. I'd probably be crunching, several more times before I get to the exact number, the exact exposures I want of every player. But, making progress here. You can see that my lineups are correlating better. I'm getting closer to the exposure levels that I like. So we're getting there, and I'll be crunching throughout the night. Anyway, hope you can find some success tonight using this or a similar process. Good luck.